There is one skill that, more than pretty much anything else, shapes the quality of your life. And yet, it's something almost none of us are ever actually taught in school. So today, we're diving into that skill, how to think. So let me just ask you, straight up, how well do you really think? I mean, we all have thoughts, right? Our minds are buzzing with them all day long. But is that the same thing as thinking well? Well, the source material for this explainer makes it clear they are two very, very different things. And this chart here just lays it out so perfectly. On one side, you've got just having thoughts. And you know how that feels. It can be confusing. It's often reactive to whatever's happening to you. And frankly, it's pretty stressful. It often leads to decisions that later on we kind of wish we could take back. But then look at the other side, thinking well. That's a whole different ballgame. It's clear, it's deliberate, and it's actually productive. It doesn't lead you to regret, it leads you to genuine understanding. Now here's the best part. The real good news in all of this isn't some kind of magical talent you're born with. Not at all. The big idea here is that thinking is a skill, just like learning to cook or play the guitar. And that means, and this is so important, it's something you can get better at with practice. So, how do we start? Well, let's jump right into our first big principle: question everything. This is all about learning to cultivate a little bit of healthy skepticism. And healthy skepticism doesn't mean you have to be some kind of negative cynic. Not at all. It's really just about getting into the habit of pausing and looking at the beliefs we've picked up from, well, from everywhere. Our families, our culture, the media. So many of our ideas are just kind of inherited. This is about making a conscious choice about what you truly believe. And here's your starter kit for doing just that. You just start asking these simple, powerful questions. Is this really true? What's the actual evidence for this? Why do I believe this? But honestly, my favorite one here, the one that can change everything, is that last one. What if I'm wrong? The moment you ask that question with genuine curiosity, you open yourself up to actually learning something new. And that leads us beautifully into our second principle: think from scratch. This is about using something called first principles thinking. Okay, this one is a huge one. It's a technique used by some of the greatest thinkers in history. The idea is, instead of just looking at how other people have done things and copying them, you break a problem all the way down. You strip it back to its most basic, fundamental truths, the things you know for sure are true. And then, from that solid foundation, you build your reasoning back up. So how do you actually do that? Well, the engine behind first principles thinking is just one simple three-letter word: why. You just ask why again and again and again. Why is that true? Okay, but why is that true? You just keep digging, pushing past the surface level assumptions until you hit that bedrock, that fundamental truth that can't be broken down any further. All right, let's move on to principle number 3. This is all about building up your very own mental toolkit by collecting powerful mental models. So what are mental models? Think of them like different lenses you can use to look at the world. You know that old saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail? Well, that's what happens when you only have one way of thinking. But if you start collecting these simple concepts from different fields, like psychology or physics or economics, you suddenly have this incredible toolkit that gives you a much richer, more accurate picture of what's really going on. And this is where it gets really practical. Take inversion, for example. Instead of trying to figure out how to be successful, you flip it. You ask, what would absolutely guarantee that I fail? And then you just don't do those things. So simple, but so effective. Or circle of competence. That's all about being honest about what you know and, just as important, what you don't know. And then there's second order thinking. Don't just think about the immediate effect of your decision. Think about the consequences of the consequences. Using these tools will absolutely change the way you make choices. Okay, let's move on to our fourth principle, and this is a tough one for all of us. It's about emotion versus logic and learning how to separate our feelings from the facts. Look, when we're feeling really strong emotions, whether we're super angry or incredibly excited, our rational brain just kind of takes a back seat. The key skill here is learning to create a little bit of space, a pause, a gap between the thing that happens and how you choose to respond. That little gap is where good thinking lives. And here is an amazing, dead simple technique to help you create that space. It's called the 10-10-10 rule. Before you make a big decision in the heat of the moment, just ask yourself 3 quick questions. How will I feel about this in 10 minutes? How about in 10 months? And what about in 10 years? It's like a magic trick. It instantly pulls you out of that short-term emotional whirlwind and forces you to see the bigger picture. And that brings us to our fifth and final principle. And this one, it goes against pretty much everything our fast-paced culture tells us to do. It's the power of slow. The idea is to think slowly and deliberately. We live in a world that demands a quick take, an instant reaction. But the best thinking, the deepest insights, they almost never happen in a rush. Deliberate thinking just means you give yourself permission to take your time, to write out your thoughts, to sleep on a big decision, to actually talk it through with someone. This is your number one defense against lazy, shallow conclusions. And, this idea has been around forever. Aristotle said it perfectly centuries ago. Being a good thinker isn't about deciding right or wrong immediately. It's about having the patience to just hold an idea in your mind, to look at it, turn it over, examine it from all sides, all without feeling the pressure to immediately accept or reject it. Okay, so we've just covered 5 pretty big principles, and I know it can feel like a lot. So here's the key. Don't try to do all of this at once. Just pick one. Seriously, just one of these ideas to focus on for the next week. That's it. Because at the end of the day, this is really what it all comes down to. And this isn't an exaggeration. The quality of your thinking quite literally determines the quality of your life. Better thinking leads to better decisions. Better decisions lead to better outcomes, fewer regrets, and a life that feels like you're actually in the driver's seat. So I'll leave you with this final thought from our source material. The single most powerful investment you can ever make isn't in the stock market or real estate. It's in yourself. It's in learning how to think.